what I did 10, 15 years ago, they're saying they're making that stuff today. So if I did that 10, 15 years ago, where I am today, I'm already ahead. And I think I was reactionary to the ones who had the agenda or the ones who were trying to get you somehow or the other, and I was ready to fight.
Right.
And now I'm like, do your thing. I don't want to fight. Do subscribe to A Film Companion to watch my interview with the lovely Anupama.
Abhay, it's so nice to see you in person.
Yes, and you.
It's been way too long.
I think 2012 was the last time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was in
Toronto Film Festival?
Yes.
Oh my God. Wow.
Did we meet? I think we met in Mami after that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
because it was
sure.
Mami was so many people.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think we actually, even if we did, we just in passing, not like TIFF where we actually got to chat and
Yeah,
chill.
yeah.
So, but I'm glad.
You know, your new film, Jungle Cry, is of course a classic underdog story,
Yeah.
right? Which doesn't have an expiry date.
Yeah.
But this film, you were giving interviews about it in 2019, and I was just thinking like, A, what happened? I know the pandemic happened, but why so long to come to a streaming platform? And how did you keep the faith? It's tough, you know?
Keeping faith is just a thing.
It's what you do.
It's what you do. It's a state of being.
Yes.
You know, you do
Yeah.
breath work, pranayam. Yeah, like I think by the last few years, I don't have, it's really what you just said, keeping the faith. Like, I'm like, all right, I've done my bit and I can't take on, because I took on so much early in my career from the kind of films I want to make, the statements we want to do, the originality, new talent, debuts, it just became a lot.
Yeah.
So I think because I took on so much just in the beginning of my career, that at some point I came to a halt and I was like, you know what? I can't take responsibility for everyone and everything. So,
So I do my work and I'm out.
I do my work, I'm out, and I hope the best for you.
Yeah, yeah.
If you can manage, great, call me, I'll mark it. If you can't, I understand. I don't know, I don't even make calls anymore to ask where are you, how are you. I'm just like, I've done my work, when you're ready, call me.
It sounds peaceful.
It is, there's only so much you can do, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But tell me, when there is a gap between when you've done your work and when you finally see it go out to an audience, do you become more critical of your own work because you have more experience, or there's too much time that has come in between?
Yeah, you know, you look at your work and you want to be objective about it. I've come to that one point in my life where I sometimes don't even watch my work. It's like,
Really?
Unless I really have to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But I know a lot of actors who say that they don't watch.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
You know, there's a point in this film where you playing the coach, Rudra, you tell the boys that याद रखना भेड़िए की ताकत झुंड में है और झुंड की ताकत भेड़िए में है, right? But you, Abhay, have never been the Jhund person, right? You know, your heart, Abhay, has always beat for the left of mainstream independent cinema, which is the cinema that came under most pressure in the last 2 years of the pandemic. And conventional wisdom, at least in the Hindi film industry right now, is that films like this are no longer theatrical propositions. Does it make it harder to make then the choices you do make?
Well, here's the thing. I was doing this right from the start of my career, you know, so it was always difficult. It's never been easy. So whether a pandemic comes in and makes things more difficult, some other dynamic comes into play, you know, I've always taken this on, and they were mostly debuts or people early in their career. So whether it was Imtiaz debuting with me or Divakar's second movie as with Zoya, or like, Navdeep's debut. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And then there were ideas also on top that didn't necessarily considered saleable. I just remember I pushed and pushed and pushed. And after Oi Lucky and Devdi, there was a sudden change towards me. And some people were like, oh, wait a minute, you know, that this guy is selling. So, but then that put me off even more, because it's like, why didn't you have faith in me from before? Which is, of course, young idealism and naivety. You live and learn. So I think
you got mad with your own stardom?
Stardom in any case was something I had to adjust myself to, because I grew up in a film family, and so I was scarred as a child being asked personal questions in school about my family, and is this true and is that true, and then I remember teachers also getting insulting sometimes. So I actually had a hate for stardom, but I wanted to act. And that worked against me, because you can't, hate is also extreme
Yeah.
position to take. So that anger was something that made me want to run away from the attention I was getting. But it's a catch-22. It's like, if you're not getting attention, that means no one's watching your work.
Right.
So you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that was another conflict that I had, which made me take a step back, because I really had to come around and embrace stardom, so to speak. Well, fame, not stardom. Stardom is something that you can't, media's paid for, so to speak. Like you kind of build it up by investing in your star. So, and I just thought that was vulgar as well. Like your work should speak for itself. Again, too much idealism. Yeah.
But when you are working with debuts, though this Jungle Cry is of course directed by Sagar, who made Bheja Fry before that, but what is it that you're looking for? Is it the compelling script, like something like Jungle Cry? What made you say yes?
I mean, I was looking for content. I wasn't necessarily looking for somebody debuting. Early in my career, just because nobody was really experimenting when I started.
Yeah.
And so the only people who were those who were debuting, and they weren't still affected by market forces because they haven't got a film yet.
Right.
And so that's why by chance I ended up with debuts more often than not. Given me a choice, I would rather get somebody who has some support behind them, because I still want to stay away from just conforming, to the formula. But which is why I want somebody with some experience behind them, because it's not just about making a movie, it's about marketing and selling it, which is something I learned the hard way as well. So I'd rather not work with a debut, but hey, what the hell? I'm looking at producing a film and acting with a debut director myself right now, so it still carries on.
You're just a walking contradiction.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So trying to find my balance a little bit. As far as Jungle Cry is concerned, it kind of checked those boxes. It was a true story about these kids, tribal kids, who played a rugby match and won the World Cup.
It's an incredible true story, which I think most of us have no clue about.
No, the fun thing was, the sad but funny thing is that they won the World Cup in the same year that India won the Cricket World Cup.
Yeah.
And while of course we must applaud our cricket players, here was this beautiful underdog story about tribal kids, studying in this institute started by this amazing individual called Dr. Samanta, who's made a mission in his life to educate tribal kids, give them food and clothing, shelter, education, like the whole world.
Yeah.
And then, to send them out and have them win a World Cup was, I think, a beautiful story. Yeah, we have cricket and we have those iconic players, no doubt. But I think it's time we also applaud, people who aren't famous, aren't huge, but have achieved something big, because their journey actually is far bigger in a way. Because cricketers are still in a place where they train and they know, they have the best of facilities and access. They already have all of that. These kids had none of that.
Abhay, my thesis about you is that you were a streaming star long before we knew what streaming meant. Okay, you were doing that. You did it. We didn't even know. We had no idea what streaming was going to be, but you were doing that. And my question now is, we've got over 50 platforms in the country. A couple of weeks ago, Amazon did this massive launch of, some 30 plus shows. There's so much work happening, so many different kinds of stories being told. Why aren't you at the center of this?
I don't know, I've taken a back seat for sure. I'm not jumping to sign staff. I don't know. I was doing ideas 10, 12 years ago that are still relevant today, and people are saying, oh, you were 10, 12 years ahead. The problem is when I did those ideas, they were one step for me, and I was ready to take the next step, and I think that next step is still 10 years ahead. So I'm always kind of dealing with, okay, did that now? That was controversial for that time. Now I have this.
Right.
And they're like, no, this is controversial. And 10 years later, they'll be making that.
Can't you just stay in step with the time, Abhay?
Yeah, I think now I'll be more conformist. Because what's the point? There's only so much you can do.
But conformist feels defeatist.
True. Wrong choice of words, because I think maybe that's why I'm not so active, because I'm still negative in my reaction to it. Maybe I need to just celebrate tradition, call it that. Oh, this is our tradition, this is what we do. So maybe I should just word it like that instead of saying, well, I've seen that a million times. And it's just conformist.
But Abhay, tell me this. You now also have the the luxury of distance, right?
Yeah.
Geographical distance, because you're living in LA or you're living in Goa, you have distance from the business, you know, you're not like embedded in that way.
Yeah.
Don't you feel that there are some vital changes that have happened? Like, for example, I remember seeing this interview you did many years ago where you said like stardom is more about marketing than about talent, right? But you now have Alia or Ranbir or Ranveer, Deepika, you know, all massive stars with actual acting chops.
Yeah.
Don't you think those are all good changes?
Oh yeah. Well, here's the thing. Talent is there in abundance.
Yeah.
It's not like we lack it. But investment is not in abundance. You see. So if you have to have talent in order to be a star, no doubt, but you also need that investment in you. And I suppose I come from that space of, well, there should be a pool, like I wish tax money would go into this pool where you invested in the people and not just in the small number of individuals. Because it's still very cliquish, you know, it's still very much like a high school canteen, the industry, you know, like.
Is it? Do you still find it?
I mean, don't you?
Hey, I'm interviewing you.
Smart, diplomatic. So I think I still have to work around that. I still desire to be more open to other people, like talent that is not from the industry, talent that comes from outside as well would be nice.
But hasn't streaming enabled that to a certain extent?
To a certain extent it is. It's enabled that, and it's enabling it more and more as time goes. And the streaming services proved that the people that the industry didn't bet their money on are now doing really well.
Yeah.
Because the streaming platforms were like, well, we want to cater to this scene, no doubt. This is the mainstream, let's invest in it. But we want to create our own as well. And so those platforms that did invest in their own now created their own stars. And you realize that it was visibility of talent that takes talent ahead.
Yep.
You know, and now there's a bit more choice than before. It's quite a lot, you know, and I think I got a little overwhelmed. Even now I'm getting overwhelmed and trying to explain everything to you.
But are you more optimistic?
I am. I definitely am more optimistic, because what's the point in being pessimistic? You know what I mean? I've come to that point where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to anything that I find is negative. While it's there, fine. It'll go on its own if it has to.
Yeah.
What's the positives that are around me? And then when you look, you find that, okay, there are things to be positive about. So just keep your energy and focus over there on the people that are genuine, not the ones who have an agenda. Because you'll always have both. And I think I was reactionary to the ones who had the agenda, or the ones who were trying to get you somehow or the other. And I was ready to fight.
Right.
And now I'm like, do your thing. I don't want to fight. You know.
You're at that, Keanu Reeves said somewhere that I'm at that point in my life where if someone says 2 + 2 is 5, I'm like, good for you.
Yeah.
Henna?
Yeah. It's like, sure. Have it your way. Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
There's more peace in that.
Yeah. I'm in a good space in that sense. And work will always come. It's not like it won't, and it does. But I still deal with how far I want to push it. Like, as creators, the satisfaction you get from pushing your own self.
Yeah.
And if you are in any case somewhere kind of walking the edge, then you want to explore that edge. And that if that's just the way you are, then that's the way you are. And in many ways, I am who I am, and I can't help it. You may not like it, but at least what you see is what you get.
Right.
I'm not trying to cover myself up to package it in a certain way so that I can be digestible to you. I'm not digestible to you, fair enough. You know, I'm not expecting you to see me in a certain way. I don't have an agenda. My only agenda is to explore my creativity as far as I can. And that's why I'm still slow, because what I did 10, 15 years ago, they're saying they're making that stuff today. So if I did that 10, 15 years ago, where I am today, I'm already ahead. And so I'm constantly still looking for that filmmaker to come along, or that studio to support. Because like when I conceived Dev D and I went around shopping it, most people said, no one wants to make this movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when it was a success, they said, okay, I got a lot of offers that were exploring the Dev D territory. And I was like, well, you know what the formula for Dev D was? Something you haven't seen before. So if there's any formula, that's it. Now you want to do that formula again, I'll give you something else that's never been made before.
Right.
But they couldn't put a number to that.
Yeah.
You know, it has to still come with a number, it has to come with endorsement already.
Yeah.
And I was like, my whole thing is that there's some, come and see something that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And that's still hard. Even the work I've done the last few years has not gone to that level. You know, because filmmaking is not an individual process. It's not a director's medium. It's not a actor's medium. It's not a cameraman's medium. It's all of them collectively who create it. I think gone are the days to say, oh, the director's the captain of the ship. I'm sorry. I've seen directors who are supported by a DP, and I've seen, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You know, the directors who like, all they know is to talk to the actor, but nothing else.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's the DP framing
and
blocking.
DP saying everything else. You know, so I'm
yeah.
like, no, there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
So I realized that it's a team effort. It's not an individual effort. It's not the actor alone that makes the performance. You know, an edit can make or break a performance. You can have a mediocre performance that's propped up by a good edit, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So you know,
that's why it's so magical.
Yeah, and so it's tough to try. It's also so tough also.
Yeah, it is.
Because you have that many more people that have to be on the same page. It's not like a paint and a canvas where it's just you and that.
Yeah.
Now you're dealing with other people and how far they can push themselves.
But Abhay, I have to ask this. The narrative around you is he's such a talented actor, but either lazy, too difficult to work with. What is your response to that?
Well, I have been gaslit a lot. There was a director recently who publicly did it, and he has an agenda of his own. So what can you do? Like I said, what you see is what you get. And it's easy when you wear your heart on your sleeve to be manipulated as well. So in my defense, I'll say that much. But as far as the other things are concerned, I don't know, like lazy, if it's not gonna push me creatively, a lot of times I can just show up, read a scene and do it. And that comes across as lazy. But I know that if I'm being pushed, my preparation comes from within. Like I don't have to do too much to put myself in a position where I'm vulnerable. I'm always vulnerable. And so sometimes that may come across as lazy. I don't know. I can't defend myself. It's like 2 + 2 is 5, sure. Like, so, but I will say in my defense that people have an agenda and I've been gaslit. So there is that. And I don't say much. I don't do much publicity. I don't pay for PR. You know, I don't do any of it. And so I would just say don't believe everything you hear. But it's sad, like the vocal ones are the ones that get printed, and then that repeated enough time tends to become the truth.
Right.
Doesn't mean it is.
Yeah.
You know, and I could play that game, but
you're not interested.
No, I do feel like today I want to like defend myself a bit. I remember there was deliberate negative marketing done for like Shanghai. They said, oh, Dibakar literally told me like, oh, we're going to put some false negative stories because that gets more eyeballs. And then they got a journalist who I had a contentious relationship with.
Strategically planned
it
negative?
Was planned negative, but they got a journalist who didn't get along with me, so he put negative stories about me only. And so I got very upset with Dibakar. So now those stories are out and they're completely false. And I'm taking names and giving you. I'm not taking the journalist name because journalists tend not to take other journalists' names. I learned that too. Other actors you can slag, but don't slag another journalist. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So they got this journalist who didn't like me and he was given full reign to do negative stories and he chose to be negative about me. And then those stories out there. And so what do I do now? I mean, I got angry because obviously I'm defending myself here. These are clear lies. Dibakar himself said we're putting false stories out. And so then they put a stop to it. Yeah.
Do you feel like they just don't get you, the industry?
They can be that. And I can be a handful too. I'm not so much anymore because like I said, 2 + 2 is 5 as you said. Yeah, I'm easily misunderstood. Like I said, when you wear your heart on your sleeve, you get manipulated or you get misunderstood. So there's definitely been a lot of that. And I myself was not refined enough to, I was reactionary,
Right.
you know. And now I don't react, I respond as they say. Took a lot of meditation to get there, but.
Good for you.
Yeah, and I realized diplomacy doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a lie if you're diplomatic. And being conformist, as I said, it can also be fun. You know, sometimes you can just do it for a laugh, you know, and what's the big deal? Why does everything have to be pushing your creativity. Sometimes you can just enjoy your creativity and not push it.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely in a better place today and not reactionary. But yes, it took a while to get there. And the industry, as you know, I mean, it's a hard place for anyone.
It
not
is.
just me, even for the stars.
Yeah.
Even those who are doing mainstream stuff. I mean, it takes a lot to get where they've gotten.
Yeah.
And I think what one should recognize is it's a difficult business.
Yeah.
And you have to be forgiving of people. And that I speak for myself also. I have to be forgiving of people too. But that is not to say that you should recognize all the elements that are in play. There's not one thing that makes a person a success or a failure.
Yeah.
It's not one thing that makes a person a certain kind. You know, many things came together to create this being, this individual, this star. You know, and there's never one clear answer.
Yeah. It is sort of the Faustian bargain, isn't it? You pay for it with your soul.
Yeah, but I have no regrets.
Yeah.
Like I believed in what I said. At least, like I said, I wasn't trying to be something I'm not. And I've grown up in this industry, so I've seen how fame can be fickle and how people sort of aren't happy. Success doesn't necessarily bring you happiness.
Yeah.
Money doesn't bring you necessarily happiness. You get a little and then you want more. You get a little and then you want more, and it never ends. So I'm glad I'm not there. I'd rather be here where I am today, happy with what I have, than have a lot and still be unhappy.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of stars go there. I knew this already before. Like people say, oh, you had an advantage, you were born in the industry. The only advantage I had is I've seen fame up close, and I'm not enamored by it. I've just come to the point where I don't hate it anymore. But that's the one thing which a lot of people from the outside don't realize. You know, they come in and they get a taste of it, and then they want more, and then it becomes their way of being. And at least that was the one advantage I had. It did not become that part that I worked for.
Yeah.
I don't work for that.
Speaking of growing up in the business, I saw this lovely picture of you
Ah!
and Bobby. How amazing. I was like, somebody needs to cast these two in a film right now. Okay, how amazing are both of you looking,
Yeah.
and especially together?
I know, and I posted this on my IG
Yes,
as well.
yes, I saw it on your Instagram. So what are the chances of this happening?
I don't know. Let's see. Someone should come up with a good script.
Hai na?
I don't mind. I've always maintained I'd be afraid to work with family, because how do I be something I'm not in front of my brother
Yeah.
or my taya? You know what I mean? Because, yeah, I find it more intimidating to work with family. Just because I don't think I'd be able to concentrate or focus. Like I said, for me, performance is a vulnerable space. And I suppose I can't be vulnerable. I'm already vulnerable around family. How much more vulnerable can you get? You know, so I think I get protective around them for my own self. So I don't know.
But this visual shouldn't go to waste.
I know. I put it on my IG. Maybe some script will come along. Let's see.
Indeed. We've got the visual, now we just need a script for it. Okay,
Yeah.
last question. What is your favorite memory of shooting Jungle Cry?
Well, the kids were really nice. It was nice to hang with them and see how bright they were, you know. And I felt bad because I kind of had this feeling in my head, which is like, oh, I hope this film gets released.
Because you know, you've been there.
Yeah, because they have this wonderful experience and they've loved it. Obviously, they want to see themselves on TV or the screen.
Yeah.
And so I hope it happens for them, more than me even.
Yeah.
There was that. I'm trying to see if there was any more. Meeting Dr. Samanta, you know, I think he's a great man. Seeing the campus and what he has going. Yeah, and then of course England's always fun to go and work there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's truly an inspiring story. Abhay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And let's not wait another like 10 years to do this
Well,
again.
hopefully Netflix will come up with that show in the next 3 months. So.
Excellent. Thank you.